Today it is my real pleasure to speak with Michelle Galoob. Michelle, you are an intuitive guide, coach, and spiritual mentor. Through your readings, workshops, and teachings, you have helped thousands of people reconnect with their inner wisdom and empowering them to access divine guidance and embrace their true potential. You are passionate about helping people reconnect with their inner wisdom, trust their intuition, and live with clarity and purpose. Michelle, I am delighted to speak with you today. Welcome to the show.
Me too. Thank you so much for having me.
I'm looking forward to exploring intuition, among other things, but let's say if I had to choose one word for this conversation, it would be intuition. Developing intuition, trusting our intuition, which are so important. Um, Before we go there, I understand that you transitioned in your life from a very logic-driven, left brain, thinker to becoming an intuitive guide to others. So I would like to hear about the change. I believe there was an encounter or that caused that.
Yes.
So tell us about this.
Yeah. So I used to have a business, fashion business in London, actually.
Hmm.
And then after that, I worked for a nonprofit, 9 to 5, and I got to a point in my life that I felt like a little bit stuck, disconnected. I didn't feel like what I was doing was what I came here to do. I was stuck between what I felt like I should do and what I wanted to do, and I had financial blockages in so many different areas of my life that I really felt like I hit a rock bottom. I was really at my lowest point. Now, before being at this lowest point, I used to ask my friends for help and, like, what do you think I should do? But I'd never really got clarity. And at this point, when I was at the rock bottom, whatever their advice wasn't enough for me. It didn't help get me out of this hole. So yes, I was a very left brain thinker, very like what you see is what you get right here, right now. I didn't even though I was spiritual, I didn't really believe that there
Mhm.
was a world beyond that could help me. So I basically had nowhere else to turn. I begged the universe for help. And I was crying, and I'm not the type to cry usually. But I was crying and begging, saying, please, please, universe, help me. I just give me answers. I don't know how to get out of this hole. And so one night before I was going to sleep, um, that was the night that I begged. My spiritual teacher who had passed away appeared at the foot of my bed, and I see him and I'm freaking out because I'm like, "Oh my gosh. I can't believe I'm actually seeing him." And he starts talking to me. So, at first I thought I was dreaming. I thought I was making this up. And I'm looking around and I'm like, "No, I'm totally awake. I see my husband sleeping right there next to me. I'm looking around the room. I see everything in the room." And I cannot believe that he's there in front of me. And he starts talking to me. And he says, I heard what you asked me for, and this is what you need to do. And basically gave me a solution to every single one of my problems. So it was like I felt like I saw the light. I saw the light. I felt so comforted. I felt so taken care of. I felt that I had all the answers at that point. And I felt so much clarity and lightness. So that I was out of the hole. So obviously it was so magical that I wanted this to happen again. A month went by, everything was great, but then you start getting back into your old ways, and new problems come up, and then I started to feel stuck again. I said, "Oh, I need this to happen again." So I begged again, and it happened one more time, and then after that there was radio silence, and it didn't happen again. And I was like, "No, I need this." This was that. It's an incredible experience, getting all your questions answered, and knowing it's coming from a really high place. It was magical. So a few months after that experience, I started to hear voices in my left ear just overnight, and it uh, felt like it was my thoughts. It felt like I was thinking a whole bunch of things, and But I realized in time that it was actually I was receiving messages and guidance, even though at the time I thought I was schizophrenic. I thought that really it was an overload of thoughts. That's what I thought. I couldn't tell the difference between the two. I couldn't tell if it was guidance or here I am thinking. So um, I confided in one person because I was embarrassed. I thought something was wrong. And she told me, she said, I don't think you're schizophrenic. I don't think you're crazy. I think that um, that something's opened up for you, that your third eye might be open. Why don't you go see this tarot card reader that I know and see what she says? So I said, okay, I'll go. So I go to the tarot card reader, and the first card that I pick is the card for seer, which is the seeing card. And she says, you came here to channel for people in this lifetime. You have the ability to see. I was like, really? What do you mean? And she said, well, your third eye is open and this is what you came here to do. I said, well, how am I going to get into this? I don't even know how, because us logical thinkers are always trying to think about the but how are we going to do it? Like, how is that going to happen? And she said, in 2 months, you're going to meet a teacher, your teacher. She comes from a foreign land. That's all she told me. And you're going to meet her, and she's going to be the one that's going to teach you everything. So I took it with a grain of salt. 2 months later, nothing happened. It was probably the very last day of March, which is when she told me that it was going to happen. I happened to get into the car with my husband, who was on the phone with a healer from Argentina because his brother was sick. And he was looking for somebody who could do some remote healing. So I get into the car and I'm like, who are you talking to? He says, oh, I'm talking to this healer for my brother. And suddenly I got all the signs, all like goosebumps in my body. And I said, this woman, I put them on mute and I said, this woman's going to be my teacher. She's going to be the one who teaches me. He's looking at me like, what are you talking about? I said, no, you'll see. Anyways, a few seconds later, this healer says out loud, she says, who just got in your car with big brown eyes? And then I was like, what? And my husband's like kind of freaking out and says, oh, my wife just got in the car. And then she stops talking to him altogether and she says, do you know that your third eye is open? I said, I've heard it before, but okay. She said, listen, I'm coming to LA next week and I have to meet you. So I go meet her at a coffee shop and she's bawling. She starts crying and I got a little uncomfortable. But then she said, my guides told me I needed to come to Los Angeles to meet somebody, and now I know that person is you. So I'm like, me? What are you talking about? She says, I've been instructed that I need to teach you everything I know. And that was the beginning of
Right.
my journey. I did not really want it because I was still very much business-minded, career-driven, not really into this spiritual world. Let's put it that way.
You accepted the calling, and that's I
I
think that's
did, and this is
here we are now.
yes.
That's great. Let me ask you straight away, because you did say at some point something I found very interesting. You said that you were hearing voices that you were not sure whether they were just an intense stream of thoughts.
Yeah.
And that's really what I want to ask you about, the difference between our thoughts and what comes from our mind, the rational mind or the primitive mind or any part of the mind, versus I will do air quotes, the voice, because it is not like voice, in my experience anyway, as the same. But I would like to hear, let's say, a differentiation first of all. Let's start with that for thoughts versus the voice from the intuition. I hope my question is clear enough.
Yes, I totally get it. So intuition is always the first thing that comes to your mind. The first thing that drops in. So you receive it in many different ways. It could be hearing, like I had. You
Mhm.
can see, you can feel.
Mhm.
Sometimes you just know things. You get
Mhm.
goosebumps, tingles. You may get messages in your dreams or see repetitive numbers or animals. So there are many different ways we receive it. Now, the issue is that when we receive it and then we put our logical spin on it, we will never, it's basically like you've thrown the message away. The message from the universe is you might as well go put it in the garbage because you've put your spin on it. You've analyzed it, you've put your logic into it. Those are your thoughts. Tuition is the pure guidance that you're receiving without any logic. So what I do is when
Mhm.
I receive guidance, or at least this is what I did at the beginning of my journey, is I would write down what I received. You know, I would just write it down and then put it aside. I would not try to analyze or figure it out. And then 2 days later, I would look back at my little journal where I wrote that down, and I would ask for guidance. I would say, you showed me an image of two birds. What do they mean? What did these birds mean? And then later your guides will maybe share with you what that meant instead of you trying to figure it out. So another method that I would use is I would give my ego, because the ego, as soon as the ego gets in to the picture, again, message is in the garbage. So I gave my ego a name, a really ugly name. I named her. My ego's name is Gertrude. Okay. So so Gertrude, she likes to insert herself into the equation. So for example, when I do sessions for people, I remember at the very beginning of my journey, I did a session for somebody who she was in her 70s, and I saw her flying out of an airplane. When I was doing this reading for her, I saw her flying out of an airplane, and I told myself, do not, Gertrude said, do not tell her anything about her jumping out of an airplane because you're going to look like a fool. That is ridiculous. A woman in her mid 70s is not going to jump out of an airplane. Don't be ridiculous. So Gertrude was telling my higher version of myself not to say anything because she didn't want to look stupid.
Yeah.
And anyways, eventually I shared it with her at the very end of our session. I said, listen, I keep seeing this image. It doesn't make sense to me, but here you go. There was a real battle. So your thoughts and your ego will always have a battle with the universe and with the true guidance. So, there was a battle, and then eventually I surrendered. I said it, and the woman starts crying, and she says, I used to go skydiving in my 20s, and this message is it basically, it was the missing piece of the puzzle. So had I let my ego get in the way, she would have never got the
Mhm.
full scope of the
Mhm.
message. So that's a good tip. If you could all come up with an ego name for yourself, and you'll recognize the difference between the two.
It's very. I think it's very useful to name it, or I've heard of picturing it as a gremlin.
Yeah.
That's the image. Something really, You said you use the word battle, that it is a battle between the two, let's say, sides or voices. So how do we trust and how do we win the battle? That is my question, because it implies some difficulty. It implies, from my point of view, some awareness of what's going on, first of all. But yeah, give us some a method or a tip or an something practical, apart from naming the ego, but something else that we can perhaps cultivate in order to be better equipped to win that battle that you mentioned.
Okay. So one of the most important things is not to have an attachment to the outcome. So let's say you ask a question like, is this person my soulmate? You want that person to be your soulmate. You are putting all your energy and all your intention into getting the outcome that you want. Okay. There has to be a surrender. There has to be I totally trust that I'm going to receive the answer, even if I don't like what I'm getting. And then you let it go. That's why I really feel like when you want to ask a question, take yourself out of the equation. Imagine you're asking for your best friend or your identical twin brother or sister. I also have a name for my identical twin, my imaginary identical twin, because it's easier for me to ask for her as opposed to for me. So that's what I would do. Okay, is this person the best person for my twin's highest good? You have to ask better questions. Detach from the outcome, um, and then you will receive the answer. Intuition is received; it's not thought of. Okay, so for example, if I asked you right now, what color is my sweater, you would look straight at me and you would have the answer right there, be able to tell me. Though that's your brain.
Yes.
But if I told you, what do you feel like I need to change in my life? What do you feel like I need to work on spiritually? You would
Mhm.
never just be looking at me. You would either close your eyes, you would look away, and you would receive the answer.
Yes.
That is the difference. The ego, the thoughts is right now, right here, right now. Intuition is received. So there may be a delay in receiving that. It may take
Mhm.
time. It doesn't just come immediately. But when it does come, you don't think about it. It just needs to be pure. So no second guessing. And a lot of times intuition might feel like you're making it up. It feels like imagination. So a lot of people I know say, well, I feel like I imagined it all. Well, it's not
Yeah.
really true. Well, how do I know if it's true? So how do you know? You let it go and you just trust in the
Mhm.
first thing that you received.
Thank you. I like very much the concept of receiving because there is, I think, a certain, can I call it, internal posture that you have when you receive that. It is not the same. So it is something to for everyone, to ponder on and meditate on how that. It is a subtle difference, but I think it's quite clear. You know when it is received, as you said. So it's a great word. And I will also mention once again, you said earlier, and I believe it is very useful practice when intuitive thoughts, let's call them that, arrive and you receive them, to write them down. You said that the moment they get interfered with the logical mind or the ego, they're not the same anymore. You said they're for the garbage bin. So yeah, I'm just reiterating this because I think it's a beautiful, useful practice to write things down. I had done it in the past, not lately, but perhaps it's a good opportunity for me to restart doing it and keep some of those. The word downloads came to my mind, but it is, it is.
That's what I always say. Downloads. Yes.
It's a nice word. It's a very digital era word. Why not? If it is, the analogy that there is the cloud out there and,
Yeah.
our phone is the receiver, in a similar mind, we receive again, here's this word again, receive. It's
Yes.
very appropriate. So thank you for.
But in order
Um,
to receive, we've
mhm.
got to have quiet around us.
Yes.
You cannot receive a message when you're like stressed about your day and thinking about your to-do list and driving your kids from this place to that place. you know you have to create some quiet time in your day, like whether it's meditation, doesn't have to be a meditation, listening to white noise, the sound of rain,
Mm.
taking a long shower, going for a long drive. There's so many things that we can do that's not the typical meditation. We can do so many different things. We could wash the dishes and suddenly you get 20 downloads. But you've got to do these practices every day and
Mhm.
train your body to be open at those times. So you do it. You're consistent every time of day, every day. Let's say at 6:30 in the morning to 6:45, you do one of those activities. You're training your body, because your body is the receiver of intuition. You're training your body to know, okay, this is when she's the most open, and that's when your guidance will come through.
What are some signs that one can look for that, in a way, let's say reassure or reinforce, because that logical part of us is part of us. So what are some signs that we can see or experience and say, okay, this is, can I say, this is working, or this is progressing, or I'm on this path of trusting my intuition?
Well, you can always ask your guides to show you a sign. Okay. So
Okay.
this is what I do.
Mhm.
So I'll say, like, if I'm on the right track, show me, show me a hummingbird today. Or give me a sign that it's not a good idea. So you can ask your signs for something, your guides for something specific in terms of a sign. And trust me, you will be able to be guided in that way. Okay. So, um, you won't know at the beginning. You've got to just keep practicing. It's like a muscle. You'll build it.
Yes.
Sometimes you might need validation from somebody else to say, "Oh my gosh, yes. Oh, I can't believe you said that. That's so true." Or, so after it's really like going to the gym and building this spiritual muscle, this intuitive muscle. You need to just work on it. You'll get
Mhm.
validation once, you'll get validation twice. Eventually, you'll start to trust. But again, it's the first thing that comes to you. So write it down, put it aside, go back to it later. And most likely, those will be the right answers for you.
You also used the word surrender earlier. You said about detaching from the outcome, and these are also, I find, very useful approaches or concepts to approach this whole intuition thing, because our ego does not like surrendering very much. I suppose it's, in many ways, it's the exact opposite of holding on with everything it's got. Michelle, is there, we have discussed about quite a few things about intuition. I would like to ask, let's say someone listening right now is certainly way past the, let's say, the stage that I'm not sure what my intuition is. So they have a pretty good understanding and can distinguish the voice of intuition and follow the guidance. What is something, I don't want to define it, what is something that you would tell them right now? Is there something that comes up for them?
uh, Sorry, I didn't understand your question. Is there something that
As an advice, as something they could do to even deepen the understanding of intuition.
hmm. Okay, so I feel like connecting to their higher selves. It's asking the universe to help. It's creating and beginning a dialogue with the universe. So even if it's speaking out loud, and it might look, speaking out loud and saying, "Hey guides, I need help with this project. I need help with this podcast. Can you give me the right words to share with my guest? I need help with my kids. I'm not sure which school they should go to." So you want to start a dialogue as you would be talking to anyone else. You have to know that your guides are like, um they're like waiters in a restaurant. Okay, your guides want to serve you, and so you need to ask for help. So and I always share this with my clients. If you went to a restaurant and your guides were your waiters, and they said, "Hey, what would you like today?" Most of us would say, "Well, no, no, it's okay. I don't want to bother you. I don't want to bother you. I know where the kitchen is. I'll just go make the food myself." And if your guides are like the waiters, they'd be like, "But we're getting paid for this. Like, we're here to serve you. I don't understand why you're even in the restaurant." This is what I would recommend for the listeners, to start a dialogue. Just ask for help. Don't have so much ego that you think that you can do it yourself. Don't feel alone, because you're not alone. There is so much support in the heavens for you. And it's accessible. So that's really what I would recommend if you want to deepen your intuition and your connection to the universe. Start talking to your guidance.
That's great, thank you. And I loved the analogy of the waiters in the restaurant. It's very, it helps me, having that visual. I think it will, for anyone listening or watching this that is visual, I think that will very much. Michelle, before we start wrapping up this very insightful conversation, where do you want to direct our listener who wants to continue the journey with you and find out?
Amazing. So I'm on Instagram. So my handle's at Michelle Galoob, or my website, which is michellegaloob.com. I also have an online platform, like an online community on School. That's
Mhm.
SKOOL. And it's called Intuitive Mastery.
Very
So
nice.
yeah.
Michelle, I have two final quick questions that I want to ask you also. And the first one is, what does personal development mean to you?
I love this question.
Mm.
Okay, so personal development to me means really getting to know who you really are, getting in touch with the core, your essence of who you are. Because when you know who you are and you start to really step into your shoes of why you came here and what your gifts are and who you really are, you become a magnet to draw in everything in your life. So it's really about like recognizing and acknowledging your gifts and seeing yourself for the beautiful soul that you are, as opposed to all your accomplishments or what you feel like you haven't done yet. It's nothing to do with that. It's really to do with who you are at your core, in your essence, that is going to bring the magic into your life.
And hypothetically, if you could go back in time and meet your 18-year-old self, what's one piece of advice you would give her?
Oh boy, my 18-year-old self. My 18-year-old self was living in Switzerland at the time. And she was very shy, and she had very little confidence. So I would tell her to really look at how many people she actually made their day and brightened up their life just by her being, not by the way she looked or any of that stuff. I would tell her to trust in herself and to see how beautiful she is.
Michelle, I want to thank you very much for this conversation. I believe there were many useful, practical, insightful things, especially about intuition, that were discussed. So I really appreciate you for sharing that. I want to wish you all the very best with your life, both personal and your mission. I will leave it to you for your final parting wisdom.
Final parting wisdom. Okay, so your guidance is there. Just quiet your minds, listen, trust what you're getting, know that you have all the support in the world, and allow your life to flow. Get yourself into flow. When you allow the universe to show you the way, it is a much better way than the way that you thought of originally. So let the universe guide you so that you can navigate this life with ease.